San Jose de Liarana.
Hello class, I am Sir Blen, one of the science teachers of San Jose High School, here to help you out in your second module for this fourth quarter. In today's lesson, we are going to talk about biomolecules. Sounds complicated, but do not worry, as you would soon find out what these molecules are all about. So take a deep breath and join me as we immerse ourselves in the world of biomolecules. Before we talk about biomolecules, let's have a simple review of some of the concepts that you have learned in your earlier years of chemistry. I will be reading to you questions and you will be given 5 seconds to answer these questions. Feeling confident? Then let's start. First question, what are the particles considered as the simplest unit of matter? And the answer is atom. Remember that matter is anything that occupies space and has a mass that are made of these tiny particles called atoms. These atoms come in different sizes and shape as implied in the periodic table of elements. These elements are basically the kinds of atoms that are there, including the different ions and isotopes of these elements. Second question, what is the resulting particle when two or more atoms are bonded together? If you say that it's molecule, then you are correct. Molecules are formed when two or more atoms, whether of the same or different elements, are joined together by a bond. Third question, what is the resulting outcome when two or more different types of atoms are chemically combined in a fixed proportion? And the answer is compounds. Compounds are basically molecules. It's just that compounds are made of different elements and the ratio of these elements bonded together is fixed. Fourth question, what do you call the compounds that are generally made of carbon and hydrogen atoms? And the correct answer is organic compound. Organic compounds are generally any chemical compounds that contain carbon-hydrogen bonds. Some sources of organic compounds are from living things, and some occur naturally, and some are synthetically produced. I hope you are able to recall some of these terms because it will be important in discussing our lesson for today. As presented in your book, biomolecules are organic molecules being produced by living organisms, which consist of the elements carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen. These elements are joined together by covalent bonding, wherein the elements share its electron with the other elements to achieve stability. There are 4 general classifications of biomolecules, which are carbohydrates, lipids, nucleic acids, and protein. You probably know carbohydrates as those found in rice, bread, and pasta, but those are not the only known carbohydrates. There are actually a lot of known examples of carbohydrates. So what are carbohydrates? Well, carbohydrates are also referred to as carbs or sugars, are biomolecules that are generally made of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen atoms, which is a very good source of energy not only by animals but also plants. There are 2 classifications of carbohydrates, which is based on the number of sugar molecules. The simple forms of sugar are called monosaccharides and disaccharides. These are considered as simple since they are made of smaller units of sugar molecules. There are also sugar molecules that are made of multiple units of sugar, which are called as the polysaccharides. Monosaccharides are considered as the simplest sugar. Notice in this figure how the carbon molecule serves as the backbone of the molecule, where the other elements are attached to. In this figure, the molecules of glucose is presented using what we call as the skeletal structure, which shows where the elements are bonded together. Other ways of writing chemical formula is the condensed state, wherein it shows the elements present in the structure, like so. Due to the reactivity of the elements present in the molecule, a glucose could also form an open chain, like so, or it can form a ring like this. Take note that if no element is written on the corner of the ring, it is implied that a carbon element is in that particular corner. There are three examples of monosaccharides, which are glucose, fructose, and galactose. When our body digests starch from rice, corn, and some root crops, it is broken down into glucose, which our body uses for energy. If it's not broken into glucose or simpler forms of sugar, our body wouldn't be able to use it. Fructose, on the other hand, is derived from the digested sugar taken from fruits, while galactose is derived from dairy products. Disaccharides are simple sugar that contains two monosaccharide units bound together by a covalent bond known as the glycosidic linkage. Examples are sucrose, made of glucose and fructose, found in table sugar. Lactose, made of glucose and galactose, that is found in milk. Maltose, made of two glucose molecules that could be found in germinated malt grains. Carbohydrates that are made of 10 or more sugar units are called polysaccharides, which are used by some organisms to form structures or emergency source of energy. Examples are starch. This polysaccharide is produced from the leaves of plants from excessive glucose produced during photosynthesis and serves the plant as a reserve food supply, which is stored in their fruits, roots, stems, and even leaves of the plants. Cellulose is the main substance in the wall of plant cells, helping plants to remain stiff and upright like in tree trunks. Humans cannot digest cellulose, but it is important in the diet as fiber. Fiber assists your digestive system, keeping food moving through the gut and pushing waste out of the body. Another example of polysaccharide is glycogen. Glycogen is a multi-branch polysaccharide of glucose that serves as a form of energy storage in animals, fungi, and bacteria. Like in plants, excessive amount of glucose in the body is kept as a reserve if food becomes scarce. Another classification of biomolecule is protein. When talking of protein, it is usually associated with meat, poultry, and legumes. These are some of the common sources of protein, but what exactly are proteins? Proteins contain amino acids linked through the peptide bonds. It is the primary constituents of living organisms as it is used to build muscles. In addition to the carbon, hydrogen, oxygen atoms, it contains nitrogen, which separates protein from carbohydrates. Earlier in your modules, we talked about amino acids, which was mentioned as the building blocks of proteins. Proteins can be classified according to their structure. Long chain of amino acids are called primary structures, which forms the simplest level of protein structure, as shown in this illustration. The next level of protein structure is the secondary structure. It refers to the local folded structure that forms with a polypeptide due to the interaction between atoms of the backbone. The most common types of secondary structures are the alpha helix and the beta-plated sheet. Both structures are held shaped by hydrogen bond, which from between the carbon and oxygen of one amino acid and the amino hydrogen of another. The overall three-dimensional structure of a polypeptide is called tertiary structure. The tertiary structure is primarily due to interactions between the R groups of the amino acids that makes up the protein. Many proteins are made up of a single polypeptide chain and have only 3 levels of structure. However, some proteins are made up of multiple polypeptide chains, also known as subunits. When these subunits come together, they give the protein its quaternary structure. When it comes to protein, it does not necessarily mean it comes only from meat, since vegetables like broccoli, artichokes, nuts, and beans are rich sources of proteins. Next is the nucleic acid, which are naturally occurring chemical compounds that serves as the primary information-carrying molecules in cells. These biomolecules play an important role in directing protein synthesis, wherein 2 main classes of nucleic acids are deoxyribonucleic acid, or DNA, and ribonucleic acid, or RNA, which we have discussed in the second grading. The next type of biomolecules we are going to talk about are the lipids. Lipids are fatty, waxy, or oily compounds that are soluble in organic solvents and insoluble in polar solvents such as water. Lipids are molecules that contain hydrocarbons and make up the building blocks of the structure and function of living cells. Lipids store energy, provides insulation, and make up cell membrane, form water-repellent layers on leaves, and provide building blocks for hormones. There are three general classifications of lipids, which are triglyceraldehyde, steroids, and phospholipids. Triglyceraldehyde are lipids that give your body energy by converting the stored fats in your body by breaking it down into usable compounds that releases energy. Your body makes triglyceraldehyde from the ingested fats, which are not immediately used as energy. Another type of lipids are steroids. Steroids are identifiable by their structure of 4 fused rings as shown here. And they are also hydrophobic and insoluble in water. Next are the phospholipids. Phospholipids are any various phosphorus-containing complex lipids that are derived from glycerol and are major constituents of the membranes of cells and intercellular organelles and vesicles. The structure of a phospholipid molecule contains 2 hydrophobic tails of fatty acid and 1 hydrophilic head of phosphate moiety jointed together by an alcohol or glycerol molecule. Aside from fats taken from meat, lipids can also come from plants such as olive, almonds, and palms. These biomolecules are important to us since not only does it provide us with the material for our body, it provides us with the much needed energy. This energy derived from our food are measured in calories. A calorie is a unit of thermal energy equal to 4.184 joules, or the amount of energy required to raise the temperature of 1 gram of liquid water by 1 degree Celsius at a standard pressure. Each of the biomolecules has a fixed number of calories per gram, wherein carbohydrates and protein yields 4 calories per gram and each gram of fat yields 9 calories. To test out your understanding, solve the following problems with me. How many calories are there in 10 grams of carbohydrates? Since there are 4 calories for every gram of carbohydrates, we multiply 10 gram with the constant 4 calories per gram. This cancels out the unit gram, leaving us with the final answer of 40 calories. Simple enough, let's solve another one. How many calories are there in 25 grams of protein? Since there are 4 calories per gram in protein, we multiply 25 to 4 calories per gram, which cancels out the unit of gram and leaves us with the final answer of 100 calories. Were you able to follow? How about computing for the calories in lipids? How many calories are there in a 7 gram of fat? Since there are 9 calories for every gram of fat, we multiply 7 grams to our constant of 9 calories per gram. The unit gram is cancelled out, which leaves us with 63 calories. Were you able to follow through the process? Try to solve for this next problem. Pause the video, and after which I will show you the answer. Are you ready? Here we go! Are you finished with your work? Here's the correct answer. Were you able to solve for the correct answer? If yes, well done. If not, don't be discouraged and go over your work. Before we end our lesson, let's have a simple recap on our lesson. Our body have a lot of moving parts and requires materials to function properly, which comes in the form of biomolecules, making it essential component of life. Carbohydrates, proteins, nucleic acid, and lipids are the 4 classifications of biomolecules. Carbohydrates, proteins, and lipids are used for energy, which is measured in calories, and for building the parts of organisms. Well, that's all for today, and I hope you were able to have a better understanding of your lesson. Till next time!